Let's crank this baby up. And we're live. We are back, ladies and gentlemen, for your viewing pleasure. Facebook, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Time, whatever, 4 o'clock New York time, Sundays and Wednesdays, right here on Facebook right now on the Jimmy Doane Show channel. Also, you can find us on YouTube and Twitter in video format, and you can find us around the web in audio format if you search for Jimmy Doane, D-O-A-N-E. I'd like to welcome all the new listeners. I think probably by percentage-wise, we may be the fastest growing.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, if you go from 1 to 2, there's 100%.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
we went from 1 to 300 or something. So
yeah. No, we're
good. Welcome aboard, everybody.
Yeah.
Also, today is the 13th day of September 2020, and I'll have a timestamp copy of this show up on those places I mentioned earlier in a few hours. So I think I got this right here, and kablamo.
Okay.
We're gonna take a break. You know,
Yeah.
give us a little.
Yeah, a little fresh air.
That's right.
That's good.
So what's happening?
Okay. Well, a couple things. It's kind of a light. I mean, everything's about. The battle has begun, of course, with between Biden and.
The
Trump.
battle it's on.
Well, it's interesting to see how that's doing. But Kanye West,
Still in it.
well, it's interesting. He didn't make the ballot in Wisconsin.
He did not.
No, what happened was he missed it by 14 seconds,
What?
and they wouldn't take it.
14 seconds.
Yeah, you had to file by 5 o'clock. And what they did at the registry.
Come on.
No, wait a minute. It gets better. This shows you what governments do. It's really funny. So Kanye had all the paperwork and everything, but the registrar's office locks the doors because they don't want any old buddy coming in there.
Right.
So they lock the doors, and what they should have done was to unlock the doors about 15 or 20 minutes before 5 o'clock. So late filers would be able to walk in. Well, the door was locked. So they had to call up, the Kanye West people had to call up somebody and say, would you come down and unlock the door? And by the time they figured it out, it was right at 5 o'clock, by the time they actually unlocked the door. So he laid the papers on there, and when all was said and done, and by the time they filed them and everything, they said you were 14 seconds too late, and therefore disqualified. We can't accept it. And I'm thinking, this is so typical of a government. I mean, you just can't imagine how many times I've gone to any store. Well, hell, I remember years ago, corporate Mrs. Jimmy went to Lord & Taylor's in Boca Raton, and she stayed after closing. This was like 9 o'clock at night or something. And they kept the whole store open until she was ready to leave. She was there for an extra 30 minutes. And nobody went home. I mean, the people in that department all were there. All the lights were on and everything.
Well, of course, that's private enterprise. They do the same thing at the DMV. If you show up late, they just keep it open.
Really?
Actually,
Actually, no.
Actually, you know what? They have made some improvements at the DMV, and I was there. I walked in 15 minutes before 5 o'clock recently and got the whole thing done in time.
Well, now they want an appointment these days.
Maybe these days.
Do.
I don't know.
They do. I looked it up.
Okay.
All the 3 DMV places here want an appointment.
Shoot, you got to make an appointment to go to the gym these days.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's really sad.
Well,
anyway, Kanye, what happened was, according to the lawsuit, of course he's suing, obviously, to get it to do this.
Right.
But the building has been locked since the coronavirus pandemic began. So it's been locked for 6 months, basically.
Right.
And of course, I noticed, for instance, over here at my bank, they have a key man. What is it called? The key master that hangs by the door, and from Ghostbusters.
Right, the gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper, right? Well, he was the key master.
Right, that's the other one. The counterpart.
Right. That was what's his name, right?
Yeah, it was Sigourney Weaver and.
No, but it was Rick Moranis was the guy that was the key master.
Bill or Ted or whatever.
Huh?
Nothing.
No, okay, right. But the commissioners, it's been locked.
Bob and Doug.
I had to call the commission, and they got there before 5 o'clock to unlock the doors. And so when they stamped it, it said 5:01 p.m. So they threw it out.
Interesting.
I mean,
Well,
he was there. He put the papers on there.
Yeah.
And by the time they got around to stamping them, they stamped at 5:01. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, you probably know, you probably are aware that both of those standards exist in the law. That is to say,
Yeah, right.
there's something called substantial performance, where if you pretty much do almost exactly what the contract said, but you didn't, but you pretty much did, then it passes.
Okay.
And then there's another thing called strict liability, or there's strict interpretation, which means, no, it says this, and you didn't do exactly that, and it's spelled out.
I'm wondering why they unlocked the door.
Well,
I
I don't know.
mean, they came down at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And of course, why would they unlock the door? Because you can't get in. You can, if it's after 5 o'clock or whatever it is.
Well, clearly it was before that when they let him in.
Well, I say that, but I don't know for sure. But they did, yeah. But anyway, at any rate, yeah. So,
Well, anyway, they'll see. That sounds to me like an absolute issue. Like, as far as I recall, now, I mean, I've never heard it spliced down to the seconds before.
Right.
But I've definitely heard people say, I have to file this by midnight, that kind of a thing.
Right.
And I've certainly seen strict deadlines. And I did get locked out of a courtroom one time for being within 60 seconds late. And it was because the clocks in the courthouse were off.
Ah.
When I showed up, I checked the clocks, and then I went to the courtroom a few minutes later, and it was too late. So yeah, and there was nothing doing as far as they were concerned. Literally within 1 minute, and bang on the door. Nope, sorry, can't come in. It's over. You lose.
Oh my God, you lose. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Speaking.
They can do that. Now, the interesting thing, you got Kanye, he's on at least one of the ballots somewhere.
Oh yeah, no, he's on a couple of them, I think.
Well, I mean, that's interesting because he will theoretically pull some votes from the Democrats.
Don't know. Again, all that's up in the air. He might be pulling votes from Trumpster.
Well, I doubt that. I mean, if you just from the breakdown of the black vote, it's so heavily weighted usually for the Democrats.
Right.
That just if he got a significant enough number, it would almost have to be, it would seem like, weighted for the Democrats. But
Yeah. Well, this is a battleground state.
right.
And so, it's kind of what happened here in 2000 when
Yeah.
people voted for, they were trying to vote for Ralph Nader or something or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, it was Al Gore
And Bush.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was 575 votes when it was all different. I mean, that's what won the election. Of course, the other thing was that why they did this, I'll never know. Why the Supreme Court decided to take that up, I'll never
Well, it was a total mistake.
Total
but
mistake.
unfortunately, they set a precedent.
Yeah, I
and
know.
we may see that come back to bite us in the butt.
No, I agree. Now that again, we got now fewer than 2 months before the big
Right.
election.
Anything, we're still in no man's land
Absolutely, yeah.
in terms of prediction. People are throwing out predictions.
What's his name? As I said, Mayor Bloomberg or what? I mean, what Bloomberg, ex-mayor, has decided to allocate $100 million to Florida alone.
Yeah, he said that before, and
Well,
whatever.
he was going to allocate $100 million for his own campaign.
Yeah.
But now apparently
At the end of the day, all they can do is put a sign up there, put Stacey Abrams up there, put somebody up there to say, "Hey, vote for us." I mean, you can't. There's only so much advertising can buy you, and once the word is out there to all the people who are paying attention, that's it. You're done. And I mean, so.
Well, again, remember now, Florida's a swing state. I mean, it's a battleground for sure.
I would not at all be surprised to
and
see.
you don't have to switch that many votes.
No,
I mean, if he starts buying up billboards all over the place, for instance.
Well,
I mean, you can have a hell of a message on a billboard.
I mean, look, I think Florida is more in play because of the Felony Forgiveness Act that happened.
Ah, yeah.
And that is, releasing a huge number of.
Well, except for the fact that, as you know, everybody's suing everybody because the court recently in Tallahassee, Supreme Court ruled that they have to pay all that stuff. That's legit for them not to vote if you haven't paid.
That was when we should have fact checked that one, because I disagree. I think the court came out and said the opposite. I think they said,
Really?
yeah, you can't hold all those people to paying all that stuff before they can vote, because it's kind of like a poll tax.
I think that was the argument.
Right.
But I think,
Like I said, we gotta have to fact check that one.
Yeah, we'll check it.
But either way, I think there could easily be a large swath of former felons voting in this election, and Florida very well could be in play. And just based on the polls, I mean, like I said, we're millennia out.
Really, this is exactly.
It's ridiculous.
This might as well be 1,000 years.
Seriously, seriously.
You know what? What is so funny is I look at 538 and some of these other people that are saying, well, now the polls are this, and now we're saying
they've got it down to the 0.2%. You know, 52.1.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
52.1. Yeah, me too. No,
Well,
look, nobody knows, but
really nobody knows. And of course, there's also the business about the poll takers. Good luck. I mean, good luck. First of all, everybody's got a cell phone now, so you're not getting those people probably.
Right.
You have to call the home people.
Well,
and wait a minute. And of course, a lot of the Trump people are liars.
Sure, well, and it's more than that. It's landscape distortions all over the place.
Yeah.
You've got the coronavirus thing.
Yeah,
people
for sure.
staying home, old people staying home, versus usually apparently more Democrats mail in their stuff, and who knows? It's going to be unknown. And that was my next question is to you: is how unknown do you think it's going to be? Do you think? Here's the question. Is there anything that any party can do on either side or any side that can actually disrupt the democracy?
I think it's going to be such a landslide that it's going to be done.
Yeah, but what about the concept? They're prepping people for that now. They're trying to say, yeah, Trump wins in a landslide on election night, but then Biden wins over the next 2 weeks as we count in the absentee ballots.
I think a landslide would foreclose that.
You mean a real landslide?
Yeah, a real landslide. I mean, if the Trumpster wins, by the Electoral College, for instance, by 50 or 100 electoral votes, and wins, the numerical vote,
right,
by a landslide, who you can't fight that.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting because
I think that they're going to they might try, but it's futile. It has to be It has to be really close. It seems to me.
Well, okay. So I'm with you. Actually, as crazy as we are for predicting shit,
right? Yeah.
I think that that's kind of the way it looks now. Of course. But if that doesn't happen, if it is close. You think that, the Supreme Court is going to stick their schnoz in and settle it one way or the other. They're going to. They did it before, and now you got Roberts, who has no qualms about, he's an activist, he's a living Constitution guy.
Yeah, really. That guy. Jeez, I'll tell you, talk about a mistaken.
Yeah, swing and a miss on that one.
Yeah, boy, that's for sure.
But,
it's not a fee, it's a tax, so you can, on the thing. How do you read this?
Well,
God, on the healthcare thing, it should have been tossed out.
Well, he's made a few boo-boos like that, but now we could be down to him making the call again. I trust him to do what he thinks is right or whatever.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, who knows? That's the thing. It could be anything.
Yeah, it could be anything. That's right. I got up on the wrong side.
Well, I'm just saying, as opposed to being bribed or something like that.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, for sure.
So,
anyway,
how long will Nancy rule in the interim is the question.
Yeah. Well, it is going to be kind of interesting, as you say, if it's close anywhere. If it's close in a battleground state. They're gonna take it out as long as they can. I'm sure. A couple weeks.
Yeah, but that's what I'm suggesting is I think even if it's close, even if it's unknown, even if it's cloudy, murky everywhere, ballots missing, blah blah, everything, worst possible scenario, and including if there's a certain segment of society. It seems, according to the news, there is a certain group out there who would like to just burn it all down.
Yeah.
And they have every interest in creating as much chaos as possible
Right.
between now and the election. And when I say burn
The
it all
Russians.
well, I mean, that's just a claim or whatever. But my thought is that you could have some groups engage in some pretty aggressive, I don't know, domestic terrorism. But even so, I'm saying even with that, the Supreme Court jumps in within a couple of months before January 21st and says, "This is the deal. You're in, you're out,"
Okay.
and everybody goes with it.
Okay. If well, that again, we'll talk about it on the
Yeah.
show.
Uh huh.
You know, I don't know if let's see. Yes, as a matter of fact, November 4th is a Wednesday,
Aha.
so we'll be here
Right.
on November 4th.
Information.
Mark that on your calendar, folks. That's good. Okay, next item I've got here.
Okay.
A professor who used a racial slur in class is put on leave.
What?
Well, a university professor in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, has been placed on paid leave after video widely shared on social media showed him using a racial slur, which you know what it was, as the N-word.
Uh huh.
But he said he was using it in a pedagogical sense. He said, "Now this is, you can't say this word, but just to show you
Right.
that it's just a
And
word."
it was still too much.
Yeah, still too much. So anyway, they complained, and he's on paid leave and so forth. And of course, the school came out and said, "There's never a time, pedagogically or otherwise, for a professor to create,
Pedagogically or otherwise.
yeah, or otherwise, for a professor to create a hostile learning environment." She said, "Using the N-word or seemingly encouraging students to use that word is not in keeping with the mission of the university, the School of Education, or the Pennsylvania Department of Education." Now, one of the things I find kind of interesting about this is the N-word, of course, is the only one. Let me put it this way. You can go to another country and use it all you want.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, what about WAP and, Mick and words like that?
Ah, you're good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, you think about it.
Well,
Fish eater or
right.
something like that. You think about the slur.
Fish eater, how dare you?
How dare you? All Catholics revolt. That's right.
That's right. Look, we know what's happened, and that is there's a supercharged issue that's been brewing that certain people are trying to push to the hilt, and they've been convinced of a certain false realities, one of which is that words are violence.
Yeah.
And it's trickled up through even the courts for the last 100 years. We saw the origin of it. It was a slippery slope then, and people kept sliding down the slope. And now you have a situation where words can be canceled. And there's, like the comedians always bat around the R word. That's, yeah, exactly. You don't even know what that is,
I
right?
don't even know.
Exactly. Well, retarded is what it is.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, and of course, look, everybody knows, or everybody should know, that the word for that always changes every 15 or 20 years or so.
Yeah.
Because as it takes on the connotation for its reality, it's a negative thing, and then people don't want to say it, and so they change it to the next thing. And it's just the nature of some words like that.
Right.
But you don't, in a university especially, you can't cut off any words. The whole point is people have to be able to exchange ideas, and that includes bad ideas. And the only way you're going to be able to exchange ideas of any kind, good or bad, even to figure out whether they're good or bad, is if you have dangerous words all allowed. It's a no words barred type of environment.
I was watching a YouTube video of, I think it was Richard Pryor, from about 10 years ago, and I think so. Why are you looking at me?
Because he was about dead at that point, but keep going.
No,
it might have been 10.
It might have been 10, but at any rate, he was using that word 100 times in his act.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 times.
Yeah.
And he was calling the people. Now, the audience was mixed.
Right.
Total mixed audience, and they're laughing their ass off.
Yeah.
And he's pointing out people, you know, and he's saying that, and, just again, and everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
This was 10 years ago.
Right.
And of course, if you happen to be a slightly tan person, you're allowed to use the word.
Sure.
You know, it's just.
Well, hey, look, it's been
It's
just kind of a
unbelievable.
fun. It's been kind of a fun social anomaly for a while, and it was one of those things like, okay, you can have this. You get to say words that the white people can't or something. Okay, and it's okay. That's all. It's all good and fine when it's just words. At the end of the day, words don't hurt people. Words are not violence, and you can just get over it. And it doesn't matter what name calling is. I mean, name calling words. It's just words, and so you just move on. So. But I mean, there's, like I said, there's a movement to make certain words more powerful than that, and that you can't say these things or you're canceled or whatever else it is, and I think ultimately that movement will fail because people will remember that you have to be able to exchange the bad ideas in order to even know that they're the bad ideas. Like this guy was saying, pedagogically, he's trying to tell people, you can't say these words. If you can't tell people what the words are they can't say, well, how are you gonna do it? I mean, you can't. And look, context is super important. Super important. If you bring it up in the context of a medical situation or whatever, then it's just words. I mean, it's just phonemes. Like you said, if you're from a different country, it means nothing until you tell them what it means.
That's right. Yeah.
And so
even if you do,
right?
So what?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I know that when I first did my first curse word in Swedish, which means nothing, Gävle, or whatever it is, Javar, or I forget what it means. Devil is all it means.
Oh.
And boy, I'll tell you, they were shocked. You know,
right?
How did you learn that word? My God, you know, it was kind of like there was the same like using bloody in England.
Right, exactly. Well, look, every culture identifies certain words that are the touch word, the off limits words.
Yeah.
And it's basically an indication of seriousness. It's like, okay, if somebody starts using these words, you know that they're in an emotional state. You know, there's something important that's happening to them right now. You're supposed to pay attention. So we don't say those words unless it's something super serious. And you just reserve those words for that. But at a university, all things go.
You would think.
It has to be that way.
Unfortunately, the universities have become.
I know, the worst.
The worst.
Yeah.
The most intolerant.
Right.
I mean, you know, and it's interesting. I was reading an article recently about Yale and how they now have, you know, even Yale, for God's sakes, wide open place, you know, safe spaces, safe places, no Halloween. You know, that's because
they had that stupid blow up with that one professor's wife about we didn't the whole cultural appropriation argument is wrapped into that. And look, the entire purpose of every university is cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the foundation of every university. And
can you imagine you're not allowed to wear a sombrero or something, you know?
Well, look, I think that whole movement is getting a lot of pushback at this point, and I'm hoping that they all come around and remember there's a clear, bright line. There are clear, bright lines. Unfortunately, like I said, it was muddied by none other than the Supreme Court. When they talked about you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That was a stupid concept. Like what he should have said is, there's no problem. Yeah, you can even yell fire in a crowded theater. Was what he should have said, and he should have ruled against the other people and said, look, I don't care what it's freaking words. Get over it. And you see that now with people who are all upset about a lot of things that Trump says. There's a whole just a book of horrible things that Trump has said. And it's all words. I mean, they got the most recent thing, which is he said to Bob Woodward that he knew that the coronavirus was more deadly, and then 2 weeks later he said to some other person that it wasn't that deadly out in public. And so therefore he lied at one of those occasions. You know, of course, he could have changed his mind between the two times, or what is much more likely is he sells himself at all times. You know what? You don't know what you think you know. If he says, "Oh, I know it's more deadly," no, you don't. You don't really know that. You were told that by some expert or something, or maybe you're just guessing out of your head. You don't know that. And I mean, what's their theory? Their theory is he didn't tell the American people to kill them or something. I mean, it's like, you know, and obviously they would say, I guess, well, he lied to people to protect them, and it failed. But you can't say it failed. I mean, you don't know how people reacted to that in all different ways.
Right, because you'd have to go back in time and do it all over again, or something.
Well, right, and it's like they think that, like, there's a certain group of people out there. Michael Malice pointed this out, that seems to have a very hard time processing information in any other form than the way that it's presented. You know, like the cuties thing, like they say, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like the producer came out and said, well, it's really anti child porn. The whole movie is so you got to look at it through that lens, you know. And to me, that's like doing a snuff film and saying, well, it's really anti-murder.
Yeah.
You know, we're just trying to show murder to show you how bad it is. You know, it's like, look, you showed it. It's like putting a warning on a cigarette label or something. You know, it's like.
Well, it's a French film.
Well, right. There's that.
I mean, it's a French film.
Right. Well,
it's I think it's filmed in a French, ex-French, not Tunisia, but someplace in Africa.
Colony in Morocco or something.
I think that's what it was. I don't know if it was filmed in Paris
right.
or in France. I think it was a French bunch of people. I think. Check me on this. But again, it's French. Who knows about those?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one too. I'm not like overly concerned. Though, did you see where the Netflix CEO was arrested?
No.
The CEO of Netflix was arrested. Apparently, there's 13,000 images of child pornography on his computer. And I just saw the story, and I've only seen it one place, and I haven't seen it anywhere else. So maybe it's a fraud.
Fact check it, folks.
Yeah, exactly. But it gave details, and they were not good details in terms of the types of images that were on the laptop or computer or whatever. So
who would have found that, I wonder?
Well, they said something like the Canadian police or the FBI in Canada were working together or something.
Well,
who knows? I guess we'll see.
That's it. Who knows?
Right. Well, you don't know. You don't know. But you certainly can't just take it at face value.
No, you can't take it. That's the whole problem these days. Everything is suspect. It's just amazing.
Right. You have to read into it all.
Well, that's one of the things that we do here on the Jimmy Doane Show.
Well, right.
We do read into stuff on what's really going on here. I
just blabbed a huge amount.
Yeah.
I pulled us way off. Where were we? Where we were at?
We were talking about racial slurs.
Right.
And
I was just saying.
And we went on about 3 different branches.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's my job. That's what I do. The United Airlines is sued for packing NFL charters with young blonde crews.
Really?
United has a contract with several of the NFL and basketball people on charter. In other words, when they want to fly someplace.
I know what you mean. Yeah, sure. Yeah. They take the plane.
They take United Airlines. They have a contract with
these. Can we get some hot chicks?
It's exactly right. So anyway, two of the very experienced flight attendants. One's been there for 34 years.
Is that how she
another
looked?
One for 28. A black woman who's worked for the airline for 28 years and a Jewish woman with 34 years say they both tried repeatedly and unsuccessfully to get assigned to work on the charter flights. Well, what happens is, as you would expect, they staff them with babes. I mean, blonde babes. Well, of course, the black chick is calling out racism. Because that's...
Well, I mean, most of the dudes are black. I would think you would want black.
I don't know. Now again, that's the suit.
Right.
So certainly the age is a consideration. I mean, somebody's been working for United Airlines for 34 years. They're 54 years old. They're not 22.
Right.
So I don't know. Ageism, right.
She probably alleged all the isms is in her.
Yeah, right. Well, they have some 36 teams in the National Football League, Major League Baseball, and the National Collegiate Athletic Association. They have contracts with all of those various teams to fly them around and everything. And so sometimes these girls get tickets to the games, including playoff and Super Bowl tickets, and extremely valuable infield passes, according to the lawsuit. So they're
valuable.
Well, I mean, you gotta think about it for a second. If you got it, you could sell it to your ex-boyfriend or something.
Yeah, but that's not what this is about.
No,
I mean,
no.
obviously, this is.
I guess it's racism.
Well, you wonder, is this one of those? Whenever I see a lawsuit like this, I think, is this one of those ready-to-go lawsuits that they have around? You know what I mean? They're looking, they've got somebody in their sights, and they're like, we just need a plaintiff. We just need somebody to complain, to sign the thing, and then we're going to go after these big teams. And it's really just law firms fighting over the fees and that kind of stuff. I mean, how could it be a frivolous lawsuit? We got paid, didn't we?
Yeah. Right. Wasn't frivolous to us. We made $1 million.
That's right. So
but yeah, no, it is interesting. I doubt if it was one of those that was sitting there, but it certainly wouldn't take long. I mean, anybody, if these two ladies walked into almost any, law firm that handles that kind of stuff, they would snap it up in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and unfortunately the society is primed for this kind of stuff right now, because you've got the situation whereby people are not allowed to hire whom they want.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, and so it creates these distortions where we want to put these people on there, but we're going to have to put a couple of big old fat pigs in there with you too.
Yeah.
Because
okay, here's the deal: you can't be wider than the aisle. If you can go down the aisle, or if you can pass another person in the aisle, you're okay.
Well, here's what you do. What you do is you have a bunch of 19-year-old stewardesses, and then you have one 99-year-old man.
And so the average is...
That's right. The average age is 36.
Well, that's what they did. That's what they did with the cars. When they had to have the fuel mileage thing,
right?
They put out a bunch of, I don't know, whatever they were, cheapy high mileage things,
right?
And that way they could sell the big fat ones.
That's right. Oh, look, our average car
mileage is 38.
That's right. We sold 2 of those 55 mile.
Yeah, that's it.
Per gallon cars.
So anyway, all right. The next item I've got here, moving right along. This is face mask recognition has arrived. Now, one of the things that has, for instance, I noticed on my iPhone, if I'm wearing my mask, it won't open up. You have to pull it down. Yeah. Now, apparently, Apple is fixing that somehow. I don't know what.
Rather just.
Yeah, the eyes, whatever it is. I don't know. I don't know. But apparently,
you know what it is. They just focus on what they can. They're just using the calculus to get the tolerances smaller and smaller.
Right. Well, the reason that the face mask recognition has arrived, what they call it, literally, is to recognize, apparently in some stores and so forth, are you wearing a face mask?
Oh, right.
And in real time, they can put it to the security people in their TV set.
And shoot.
In real time. So if you walk into the store, and the TV camera, or the algorithm, whatever it is, recognizes that you're not wearing a mask, they can come out and, kick you out or do whatever they're going to do. But the problem is, of course, there are other, as you know, you're supposedly, if you get your little card that says I can't wear a mask, because I've got a disease or something. I'm walking around with another disease, okay?
Right.
It precludes me from. I've got measles, so I can't wear a mask.
That's right. So, smallpox.
The smallpox. That's right. I'm walking at it. So anyway, I thought it was interesting that this primarily. Now, what they're talking about is this real-time business. Now, in England, London, I understand. Maybe China is catching up. In London, of course, they've got more TV cameras than people practically. And they have a central. Have you ever seen the place? They have this central place.
The Ministry of Information.
The Ministry of Information, right? And they've got 1,000 TV screens there. That the guy that's watching can see all this stuff. Now, that's interesting, of course, is how are you going to do social distancing if you're on, walking down the street with 1,000 other people? I mean, it's not going to happen.
Well, look.
6 feet apart?
Yeah, but that is so nebulous, as you know. I mean, that is literally plucked out of just thin air. It's just a calculation based on laminal airflow, basically, between two people. And you're obviously not counting the movement of the people So, when you're walking past one another, you've got the flow is moving around and it's getting all washed in there. I mean, it's got to be all mixed together. So it's like I noticed that they took out the arrows at Publix.
Really?
Yeah.
Good.
So now you can walk past people safely. So look, it's not what you would consider to be highly scientific, the whole mask.
Well, I did see one. There's another expert lady. I forget what she is. She's not an epidemiologist, but she has something else aligned with it. And she has said that you must wear your mask outside as well because of the flow that you just talked about. That lingers in the air if you're not in the air, and you can.
Sure. Just imagine if you walked around with a cigarette and just every.
That's what she was That's what she was comparing.
If you can smell somebody's cigarette as they walk by you and that kind of stuff, and if they're smoking, then yeah, you're breathing in a certain amount of their air. Okay, that's just happening. But look.
Well, I can tell you, as an ex-smoker, I can really smell it these days. I mean,
Sure.
Even after they're done, if a person, literally, if you go within 2 or 3 feet of the person, you can tell they were.
And you can tell. I mean, there's colognes. There's deodorant. People who don't wear deodorant. There's
I remember the first time I went to France, I found out.
Yeah.
You go in a French elevator, it was something else.
So there's going to be a lot of mixing. Like to me, it still comes down to if you're vulnerable, protect yourself. Look, you can't possibly control every other person's actions. So the only way you're going to keep yourself safe.
We're going to talk about that in just a minute in Victoria, Australia.
Oh yeah.
Another one to talk about that, but let me just finish this up.
Sure.
The James Lewis, I forget who he is exactly, but said recognition could be useful for maintaining compliance during the pandemic, and he said that what he's more concerned about is this data that's being collected, how it's used. And like in China, I would imagine, they have the social engineering business where if you jaywalk or anything like that, you get a mark against you because they have all the cameras to do that stuff, and then maybe you can't get on the train or something like that. And that's what these guys are worried about is there going to be the data is going to be used for the social engineering rather than the disease protection.
And we're seeing that right now in the UK. Interestingly, they just instituted what they call the Rule of 6. Which is no more than 6 people can get together, unless you're a single family unit. They're not gonna break up a single family. But like if you're 2 families of 4, nope, you can't go to your neighbor's house, all 4 of you at the same time, because that's more than 6 people together. And they're gonna try to test the entire nation with this stuff. I mean. You talk about, and look, if you pass the test, you get a freedom pass.
Really?
Yeah.
A freedom pass.
Right. You get a pass to be free, because otherwise you're not, clearly. And because you're going to have to take this test. Look,
what test?
The COVID test. They have a quick test that they're going to give out.
Oh, okay.
And
you mean like a swab?
Yeah, exactly.
On the spot?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a DUI test or something?
Exactly, like a little like a breathalyzer or something.
Something, yeah, okay.
And so it's not super accurate, but it's good enough. Apparently, look, and that's what I'm getting at. It's all arbitrary. It's like one guy, Boris of all people, is laying down the law on these parties and stuff. I mean, can you imagine every wedding, every birthday party, every celebration of any kind, any anniversaries, baby showers,
funerals,
everything?
If you gather by the graveyard, by the tombstone, no can do.
I mean, it is so bizarre, and they're just going with it.
Well, that's interesting because Fauci has now come out and said, we're not doing enough. You really need to tighten this down, and he said, it's going to last at least until the next year.
Look, here are the numbers from the last 2 weeks on COVID deaths from New York, New Jersey, California, Texas, and Florida. And what you can see is New York has gone up by a whopping 72 deaths.
Woo!
In the last 2 weeks. New Jersey has gone up by 90 deaths. Okay, California is up by a couple of thousand, and so is Texas, and Florida's up by 1,500. So you can see in the places where it ran rampant, it's probably already done. I mean, New York and New Jersey have the most deaths, and they're tapering off. I mean, they're in the single digits almost for each day.
Yeah.
So, and they have large populations, obviously. So,
well, they had apparently they tested it here in Gainesville. They found a bunch more because the students are coming back.
Well, yeah.
I think we had 2 deaths though, and they were elderly.
Yeah.
One was 84 or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, okay. Well, along the same line, Australia's anti-lockdown Freedom Walk results in arrests after clashes with police. And now is Australia a day ahead of us?
Oh, I forget.
The line goes down the middle of the Pacific. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess that Australia might be a day ahead of us. So it's already Monday in Australia, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, big event. We'll have to find out. A big event planned for Sunday. Despite all the warnings, it was disappointing to see individuals turn out to protest in the city today, putting the lives of Victorians at risk, said the Victoria police officer.
Uh-huh.
And he said, he notes that while 1,500 people signed up to attend today's protest, only about 100 actually showed up because they had threatened anyone who breaks the lockdown. Now, in Victoria, in Sydney or wherever this is, they have, even outdoors, you have to wear a mask and social distance.
Okay.
They're real strict on this, 100%. And so they have threatened anyone who breaks the lockdown restrictions could face upwards of a $1,650 Australian dollar fine.
Uh-huh.
Police warned that they'd be out in force, and they far outnumbered the anti-lockdown protesters who threatened to gather en masse over at something called the Shrine of Remembrance.
Uh-huh.
They arrested 14 and fined more than 50. Hundreds of officers formed a wall around the Shrine of Remembrance. Now, what is interesting, I saw the picture. They're all on horseback. Not all, but a bunch of them. And they had, arm in arm. So they weren't doing any social distance. The police weren't doing any social distancing,
right.
That's for sure. But I thought it was interesting that they arrested people and they showed this one guy was being arrested. He was handcuffed, but he had a mask on. But he was being escorted by 2 officers who had their hands on him, to go to jail. And it's just kind of fascinating, I think, to see.
These are some of the scenes. This is some kind of a market, and you can see they're just pushing through. I mean, these are ladies, people, and they're just pushing them. Just no problem.
Jeez.
It's interesting.
I'll tell you.
I mean, they're just marching.
You wonder, of course, I say this, but I've also mentioned on many times that they had young whippersnappers on the watchtowers at the Berlin Wall from east, and they would shoot to kill anybody trying to leave. I mean, they were trained, and they had no problem. I mean, I say this, I can't believe they didn't have PTSD after that.
Well, they would. I mean, and some of them would fail to shoot. I mean, obviously, that's going to happen. But the fact that the system was set up for them to do that is obviously disturbing. And they're going off the rails in the UK and in Aussie land, apparently, in terms of the enforcement for
They
this
really
stuff.
have. I mean, that's just stunning. And of course, one of the things that happens with this, as you literally lock down the place, then there's no more. You don't collect taxes because there's no more business. I mean, what are you going to do when you run out of money? As we've seen already here in Florida, for instance, they're already talking about a multi-billion-dollar shortfall in tax collections because of our tourist industry. Mm-hmm. And Italy's seen the same thing. I was reading an article today that Italian did not see their August bump from tourists. No, it just didn't show up, and there's like none there now. They're closing a lot of the venues that tourists usually go to.
Well, as we have not seen the effects of the shutdown yet.
No.
They really did it with reckless abandon. Just wait and see the closures and the bankruptcies and that kind of stuff, and the cascade from it all. But it's coming.
Well, it's stunning to me to see our little local tyrants here have no qualms at all about doing that stuff.
Well, it's unprecedented. Nobody thought of it before, I guess, and nobody was around for the last pandemic. It's been so long, and they just. It's amazing to me. I don't know what the attorney would have said. Like if I was the city attorney, and they're sitting there saying, "Well, we're going to do a lockdown," I would say, "You can't lock people in their homes, healthy people. What do you think you are?" You know.
Well,
and of course they would be like, "Well, you're fired." And
yeah, right. Well,
so,
we're the rulers. You know, we're the elites.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and we're all doing this they're still doing it on television, of course. Interesting, all of the, Greg Gutfield and the five, they're all in their own homes. Everybody's in their own place in home. Everybody's still doing the Zoom business. It's hysterical, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would expect the media to go along with it. I mean, obviously they want everything that burns.
Oh yeah, no, I read several stories today on Yahoo News, and they were the scary ones. I mean, These are the ones that just, as I say.
We're going to see the word. What do you think? I've been thinking about this. What do you think is the craziest story that we're going to see about Donald Trump between now and the election?
Boy, I'll tell you, that's wide open. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm thinking, we're going to see Russia Gate 2.0.
Yeah.
Right? And
And here's the deal. Not Biden, but Bloomberg is spending $100 million in Florida to influence the election. Do you think for 2 seconds that the Russia people are going to spend any money at all? Well, they're going to put a $50 ad on Facebook? I mean, give me a break.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's ludicrous to think that they could affect anything on this election.
Oh, right. Well, yeah. Look, I mean, you and I are on the same ilk on that. And that everybody's elections are always interfered with by the major players.
Absolutely.
You would do it just to see if you could do it, if nothing else. But and who knows whose side it's on? It's like
that's another one. If you just want to do chaos,
right? Well, it's like, do you have one operation that's out in the open like Facebook for one candidate, but then you have a secret operation for the other? I mean, come on, of course you would do something like that.
Yeah.
And of course you would have a secret operation for the to go back on the first.
That's right.
Of course you would do all that stuff. So yeah, we expect that, but I'm talking about, do we expect another sexual transgression analysis?
Yes, actually, yeah, there's one coming up.
Jean, what's her name? It gets her.
I don't know. She said 20 years ago or something.
Right.
She was sexually abused by Trump.
Right.
And now, of course, the Bolton book, which has kind of died down a little bit because a lot of that stuff that he put in there.
Bolton book?
I don't mean Bolton. I mean
Woodward.
Woodward, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much died down.
Well, it's hot fire right now.
Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, sort of everybody's tossing the idea around. I think people have realized the holes in the theory, which is what we talked about earlier, which is the theory is that he is saying anything because he wants people to be harmed, which that just doesn't hold water. It's like,
is that thing?
No.
Is that showing up?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
So if you're going to say that he lied, then you have to say why he lied. What motivates him to lie about that? And if you say, well, he just cared about people, I mean, well then okay, then he was just doing what he does,
Yeah.
And you can't say, well, he just didn't care. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's interesting to see because they talk about he didn't shut down or whatever, and of course what they haven't asked Biden is, how would you have handled it?
Right. Well, that's the other thing is.
I mean, that's the first question you say, okay, bad,
let's say
Orange Man, bad. How would you have done it?
Right.
Knowing what you know today, even.
Right.
Which of course is the super Monday morning quarterbacking.
Sure.
But it's interesting that that never gets asked, and I've seen articles where another 100,000 people died because he waited 2 weeks to do something.
Right. Yeah.
Were you crazy?
Yeah. Well, and look, I
I mean,
always
why do
come
they
back
quote
to,
these people?
huh?
Why do they quote these people?
Well, you know why? It's
Yeah.
because we're talking about the news, and
Yeah.
the news wants it to be horrible.
That's it.
I mean, whatever.
If it bleeds,
whatever's
it leads.
the most
I mean,
horrible thing.
Death leads.
That's
Bleeds,
right.
it leads. That's no
So
question.
he
about it.
lied. People died. It's 100,000 people died. They obviously infer the worst.
Yeah.
How do you know 100,000 people weren't saved because he said that? Maybe they were. Maybe people heard that, thought he was lying, and decided to protect themselves anyway. I mean, they always assume that people take it at face value what he says, and that it's true. Like I tell people all the time, they'll say, "Well, so and so was accused of this crime." Yeah, well, okay, it doesn't mean anything. And then they say, "Well, then he was convicted," and I'm like, "Well, it still doesn't mean anything for real. You don't know. I mean, we treat it like it's conviction, but you don't know." And they say, "Well, he confessed during the thing." And I'm like, "Well, you still don't know, do you?" I mean, I have defended people who confessed to crimes they didn't do.
Yeah.
It happens. It's
Yeah.
in part of reality.
Well, speaking of that, of course, it was interesting. They just executed some famous
The wrestler.
the wrestler in Iran, I guess it was, and he confessed. They said, but
That's right.
and then he recanted. Said, "No, I was tortured."
Right.
And can you believe that they would torture somebody for a confession in Iran?
Yeah, it's
I
so
don't know. That seems a little far fetched to me. Get the old rubber hose out. Okay, moving along.
So, and the other part of the Woodward thing doesn't hold water is if it was that bad, Woodward, how come you didn't say
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Right. I mean,
come
certainly,
out-
certainly, if you were interviewing somebody and they said, "I'm going to go out and kill somebody today,"
I'm going to launch
you
the
would-
nuclear strike tomorrow.
yeah, nuclear strike.
Well, that's going in my book, sir.
Yeah, right. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to tell anybody. Jesus, where's Superman when you need him?
That's it.
So yeah, that's exactly the big thing. Is, why didn't you say? It reminds me a little bit of the one of my favorite movies is Dr. Strangelove. And and they said, as they said to the guy when they figured out about the doomsday bomb, and they said, "Well, why didn't you tell anybody? I mean, it doesn't do you any good if nobody knows about it."
Right.
That's the ultimate theory. Why didn't you say something? Well, the premier, always liked to have a big show, and he was going to announce it Monday. And here it was like Friday or Saturday or something like that. But I mean, it was going to announce it. That was the when I'd love to see Peter Sellers. Why didn't you say something? It loses all its meaning if you don't tell everybody. This is one of the great scenes in Doctor Strange. Like, God, can you imagine a 50-year-old movie? What great. As the West Coast burns, the leftists blame climate emergency. Obama said, quote, "The fires across the West Coast are just the latest examples of a very real ways our changing climate is changing our communities. Protecting your planet is on the ballot. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does." So the ex-president has come out and said the fires are perpetrated by climate change.
Okay, and we can touch on the fires, but I'll also say that Obama has another ad that's playing right now where all he says is, "Don't let them steal your democracy."
Okay.
It's don't let them steal your vote.
Okay.
Go out, and in other words, he's suggesting that if the other side wins, it's illegitimate.
Right.
That it's stolen from you somehow.
Yeah. No.
Not that. I mean, it's like crazy to go over the top like that from the ex-president. On the fires, look, I think there's a pretty widespread counter argument out there that the forest management systems
Right.
out in
Well,
California
that was
suck.
because, as somebody pointed out, this was the environmentalist business, where they said, we're environmentalists, so we leave the forest alone for the environment. We don't clear out the underbrush. And of course, Pacific Gas and Electric had been spending the last couple of years not clearing the underbrush from under their wires as they transit over to renewable energy, for instance.
Yeah.
And so guess what?
Well, that's the other thing that's.
Well, the thing I was speaking with my sister-in-law, that she said she lives in Idaho, on 2 hours, an hour or so up in the mountains, north of Boise. She said she can't even see hardly out the window because of the smoke.
Wow.
Even the smoke is leaving California. I mean, can you imagine how bad is it?
Yeah.
They showed a satellite picture of the smoke, and it comes up all over the Canadian border and Idaho and everything, and goes over towards Wisconsin and Michigan. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's phenomenal when you see the amount of smoke that's going up. But as I said, that everybody's leaving California, including the smoke.
Yeah, well, that's obviously true.
Well, what's interesting to me, of course, is one of the things that COVID supposedly does is to hurt your lungs.
Right.
I'm sorry, smoke that you can actually see. You're going to go outside and breathe in these absolute particles that are floating around in the air. I mean, now that's when you would have a mask on.
Well, you know, your lungs are designed to filter out that kind of stuff from, relatively speaking. You're not gonna get, seriously, that's fine.
I can breathe that to the asbestos people or something.
Well, that's a particular type of particulate matter, which is very sticky and causes problems. But something like smoke, it's all just carbon. It's just, it's nothing but carbon floating around for the most part.
Well, then what's wrong with smoking cigarettes?
It's got chemicals and stuff.
Oh, that's
in it. They
true.
put nasty stuff in it. I mean, if it was just tobacco, you might be okay. And then it's also obviously tons of it. You're
right. It's a long-term thing also. I mean,
right.
Even the asbestos people, they were working on these ships with asbestos for 20 years.
Right.
Or the coal miners, black lung disease. You're in there for 30 years.
Exactly.
What do you expect?
Exactly.
So, I mean, I understand that.
But look, the fires out there in California, and to me, the power thing is just laughable. I mean, it is really laughable. If you believe that nobody can provide you with power in 2020, you've fallen for it.
You saw where the governor, Gavin Newsom is his name?
Yeah.
Said, it's 3 o'clock, it's time to turn your thermostat up to 78.
Yeah.
Were you kidding me? I mean, and of course they're talking about the heat. And one of the things I was reading that the hottest temperature ever recorded was in Death Valley in 1913 or something, 134 degrees. Mm-hmm. So, and that's, 100 years ago, Death Valley is called Death Valley for a reason. Mm-hmm. You certainly don't traipse across that without any water. But the simple fact is that the smoke and the fire and everything is an environmental thing. And the fact that the governor comes out and says, now you need to turn your thermostat up and lock yourself in your house. Wait a minute.
Well, not exactly a modern solution.
No.
It's stone knives and bearskins, but this is the problem. This is a great ad in a nutshell. And so, if you believe in climate change, there's climate change, and here's nuclear power in the form of a big rock monster, and that happens, and then these are the anti-nuke 100% renewable fossil fuels, and that pisses off nuclear power, and so he lets climate change smash them.
Oh God.
So,
oh my God.
Interesting little thing ad there, but they have got to figure out that nuclear is really the solution.
Right.
And hopefully that this will be a kind of a wake-up call, but they're obviously going to pitch it as a climate change disaster, an unavoidable climate change disaster.
Yeah, well, that's what they're trying to hang these fires on.
Right.
Is the climate change. It's just amazing. Of course, what we're looking forward to. I was watching this thing on YouTube about the Tacoma cock or whatever it's called, the Tomahawk. This is the nuclear fission.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's it called? Tomahawk.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Anyway, but I thought it was interesting to see how huge this thing is.
Right. Well, and that's obviously fusion.
Right.
Which is the next level. But we could solve all the energy problems and all the carbon problems with nuclear right now.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And so anybody,
even with our standard fission, we could certainly solve it. That'd be no problem.
Dirty old
and
fission.
they have now gotten it to the point where they can even make quote small nuclear.
Yeah, we showed that image just last week.
Is that right? Yeah.
If that holds, it's just great. And you could theoretically have those things all over the place. So.
All right. Well, that's pretty much what I've got.
Okay. Let's see. Well, right on time. I may have a couple of things here. Let's just see.
I did have a thing here, which maybe I'll go home and read this on my own Facebook page. An article by George Will that he was talking about this.
Oh man, he is off the reservation.
Well, actually, he's taking the CDC to task for what they're doing wrong. He says they really screwed up. So
well, is that an attack on Trump though? I mean, there's
no.
Okay.
No, he's talking particularly about the CDC and how they're screwing things up and how they're, they've come out for, lockdown
Top
forever.
Men.
Well, they said
top experts.
They wanted the power to prohibit. What the thing CDC has done is to say that you can't. They want to make sure that the government says nobody can be kicked out of their house for non-payment if they've lost their job. By fiat, they're going to just executive decision to say you can't kick anybody out for non-payment of rent.
How is the CDC involved?
That's what he talks about. So
well, I will say one thing on that, and that is that the government now owns something like, I want to say, a third of all mortgages.
Okay, I can believe that. You mean Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they own.
They already blew it once. I don't know how they get caught up in it again.
Because it's the same effort. They never changed their methodology, which is we're going to bail out everybody, and so then they wanted people to have homes again, so they got back into the business. They started securitizing the mortgages again.
Yeah.
And now they own all the bundles. Now they're not doing the credit default swaps like they did last time.
No, that's right.
But it's still security bundled, mortgage bundled securities.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that I've always said is when you look at a place like in Europe, almost nobody owns their own home. They all rent. I mean, just about everybody rents. I mean, it's just, but you have a home, you have a place, you're there.
Look, the market is what it is. People will decide for themselves.
Yeah.
And there is no ideal home ownership number. It's whatever people decide at the moment. And in some years, they may be more inclined to have more mobility than other years.
Right. Well, that's the big thing. I was listening to Peter Schiff, I don't know, a couple of years now, and he said that's the reason he rents. Is because he can boogie out.
You never know, and things could change where everything could shift. To try to encourage home ownership it's a market distortion you can't achieve. It's like they're trying to start black-owned businesses nowadays. They want to have especially banks who are going to loan money to black-owned entrepreneurs, black-owned businesses, and black entrepreneurs. Well, if you just think about it for 1 second. If you're the bank guy, your entire goal is to make successful loans. You don't care what the people look like. You're trying to make successful loans. But if one of your metrics is the way the people look, then you're necessarily going to be pushed into riskier loans because they're ones you wouldn't have made. And they're based on appearance. And so you're doomed to fail from the outset. And I mean, that's the kind of thing, the homeownership method. Look, we're going to loan to riskier people who can't afford these homes. We're going to give them no down payments, and we're going to give them a percentage of interest rate that almost anybody can afford except these people.
Yeah, right.
Because they don't even have jobs and stuff. So that it's doomed to fail, but I don't know when or how long or how big.
Well, I tell you, the home ownership in vast swaths of California right now has not been the panacea. You'd think when you see all the homes, they're going up in smoke.
Well, yeah, there's that, but still the real estate out there is incredibly high priced relative to the rest of the country.
I hate to think what the insurance companies are going to be stuck with.
And lawsuits all over the place.
Yeah.
But all right, let me just
what
see
do you got?
here. Yeah, let me just see. Kind of talked about that. And that. And well, just real quick, I will just say that apparently the Durham investigation is still going on.
Yeah.
And there was one interesting thing that I heard this week, and that was apparently a bunch of the telephones from the FBI are unavailable for evidence.
Yeah, right.
And
Yeah, no, that's what I heard. Yeah, there's like 50 or 60 or so, a bunch of them.
Weird.
And they've either been wiped clean or they're
Yeah.
unavailable.
And that's curious to me. And I saw Dan Bongino on Shapiro's show this week.
Oh, yeah.
His Sunday special. Dan his big thing is the Spygate whole
Okay.
issue, and he believes it all hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to. When he gives his reasons, he's drawing inferences
Sure.
from the evidence that he has. Whether they're good inferences, you don't know. It's hard to say, but it's still going on. So that's kind of interesting. But let's see. Okay.
They did cancel the celebratory flyover New York by the Blue Angels or somebody, or some thing. They said, what are you thinking? You're going to have 9 airplanes fly over as a celebration of 9/11. You're thinking, what are you thinking?
You're gonna have a couple of airliners
Yeah, right.
fly over.
Yeah, sure.
All right, that's pretty much all I had.
Okay, well, we're done.
Yeah. So
Good day.
let's see here. Let me crank up some music. So watch out for this crazy news cycle, everybody. It is going to be insanity. I keep seeing just dumb rhetorical. Every time I see an article that says Hollywood slams so-and-so or something, I'm thinking, really, all of Hollywood?
Yeah.
And
Well, they do that all the time. They'll say China does this.
right, China
Sorry.
does that.
You know,
Or,
when they didn't even talk about the United States.
and their verbs slammed and ripped and stuff, It's like, well, he mentioned it, He mentioned it. He said something about it, I think. But ripped him, man. So, I don't know. All right. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate it.
Tell your friends.
That's right.
Please leave us a note, whatever.
Share this if you
We
want.
did get a bunch of notes from Ferrara.
Yes. Thank you, Kenny. Good
Thank
to
you.
see
Yeah,
you.
it was great.
So, thanks for these tracks from Kevin MacLeod. We really appreciate it. I'm Counselor Curtis. This is the Jimmy Doane Show, and we'll be back on the 16th, Wednesday, 4 o'clock. So, come join us. Send us a message. Email Jimmy at jdshow@gmail.com. He'll hate that. Ha ha.
Yeah.
All right, see you soon.